First and foremost, before we get started, I like to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rikah Kwadash, and double honors to those great millstone, while unto his truth, and also to those Philet that scattered abroad. I like to say, Shalom. Come back here today with another great, powerful lesson to the spirit and the power of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. And the type of the lesson is, they shall not regard their kings nor princes. So I like to say shalom to all our listeners and learners. Hope to sweep you today and guide you back in the path of righteousness and back to your true power, which in fact is Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. So before we start today's lesson, I have a quick news article here by CBS News. And it reads, it said Vance Bolter went to other lawmakers' homes the night he unalived Rep. Hartman and wounded Senator Hartman, FBI says. Let's get a little bit more. It says here, Vance Bolter has been charged in the shooting of two Minnesota lawmakers and their spouses, and the FBI says that he visited the homes of multiple other elected officials the night he unalived Minnesota Representative Melissa Hartman and her husband and wounded Minnesota Senator John Hartman and his wife separately. Said Bolter, 57, is charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree attempted murder, according to the criminal complaint filed in Hennepin County Court on Saturday. Bolter is also facing 6 charges in federal court, including stalking and murder. Said the FBI held a conference Monday morning to share further details from their investigation. And he appeared in federal court in St. Paul Monday afternoon. So that's all. We're going to stop it right there. So we constantly seeing a increase activity of these lawmakers, also these government officials, coming up, with attempted, unalive, or some of them coming up unalive. And also we already knowing about the two attempts on DJ Donald Trump. You know what I'm saying? It was 2 failed attempts, but we already knowing that, a lot of these things has, could be manufactured, also it could be engineered, also it could be some type of propaganda. But one thing about it, we already know that these things are going to happen. It's just like what the Bible says. So, right, title of today's lesson, they should not regard their kings nor princes, law enforcement, government officials, state officials, these lawmakers, local, and federal, it does not matter, they're not going to regard them. So right now we're seeing that this nation is very divided. It's a lot of tension, civil unrest, sedition, insurrection. Also, we already know what happened with DJ Donald Trump. I think it was several years back when they had that insurrection at the White House. So a lot of these things are constantly picking up. Also, that with there was another incident with I think the Speaker of the House at that time was I think her name was Pelosi. That lady, she had, I think, a attempt with her husband or something. Man was stalking at her house. So a lot of these things are constantly picking up. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. You know what I'm saying? Especially the law enforcement, the police. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to regard the military. So it's going to be a lawless time. So we see that it's constantly picking up. Things are very tense right now. We're right at the boiling point of all hell breaking loose. So right here, this man has unalived, these 2 lawmakers in Minnesota. So I have some video to bring it out with a little bit more. So right now, the days are evil. They constantly going left and right, and we have to be circumspect. So let's get that right quick. And I have some video to bring this out with a little bit more edification. Let's start out with this quick precept. Let's go to the book of Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 15. See then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. And out about got to be what? knowing your surrounding, knowing the people that you're dealing with, also knowing what time that we're living in, so when you go in that word circumspect, circum means around, inspect means to look around, because one thing about it, we in these times, evils is constantly growing all around us. Verse 16 said, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. So one thing about it, we got to redeem the time to make the most of the time that we have. And one thing about it could be your last. So why we always ask the Lord, Lord willing, out of one Ratazah, Lord willing, that we make it another day, because it's not promised to us. And one thing about it, we know that judgment is coming down at a fast pace. And it's constantly going to increase. You know what I'm saying? So verse 17 said, wherefore, said, be ye not unwise, but understanding what the will of the Lord is. So that's what we got to be at right now, knowing what the will of the Lord is. Said, lean not on your own understanding. Trust and believe in Yahweh, Ba'ashim, let the Lord direct your path, because see right now that the days are very evil. Be circumspect. This, all of a sudden this man was posing like a police officer, and also he had a fake police car, and walked right in and did what he had to do. So these things gonna constantly increase, left and right. It's called it political violence. So these things are on the increase. They're not trusting in their kings or their princes. In the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So now let's start today's video, and after the video we'll start the lesson, and I hope that you will get edified.
Details are emerging about the murder of a Minnesota politician and her husband, and the attempted murder of another lawmaker. A 57-year-old man is facing charges after a tip led to his capture.
Belter saw the officers get out of the car. He drew his weapon and began firing. He rushed into the house through the front door, firing into it.
Minutes later, Vance Bolter allegedly killed State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband. Authorities say on the same night, he then shot and injured another state lawmaker and his wife, and then went to the homes of two other elected officials, posing as a police officer intending to kill them. The alleged shooter also had the names of more than 45 elected officials in notes found in his car.
Democrat politician Melissa Hortman and her husband were shot and killed in what the state governor describes as appearing to be a politically motivated assassination. Another Democrat, the state senator John Hoffman, and his wife were shot by the same person. They survived, thankfully, but they're undergoing surgery. Now, police found the suspect's car. In it, they found a manifesto and a hit list of nearly 70 people. That list included lawmakers, but also other officials and abortion providers. And police are notifying everyone on the list, and they're sending security. There are also lockdowns in certain areas where the police are on the search for this runaway assassin. Former President Joe Biden has made a call for national unity, and Republicans from President Trump down are also condemning the attack. They say there is no place in the country for political violence.
I'm sure you've heard by now about the two Minnesota lawmakers who were shot by an individual who was posing as a law enforcement officer earlier this morning, and our thoughts and prayers with the family. But what you probably didn't know is this. Just a couple days ago, Melissa Hortman, the individual who's lost her life, actually voted no to provide illegal immigrants with health care. Minnesota Senator John Hoffman actually also chose to cross party lines and move to pass this legislation. And what's wild is you can actually see video of Melissa appearing to look distressed in the aftermath of choosing to break with her own party. Now, here's where things get interesting. Also, the Minnesota State Patrol just came out and said that the suspect left his vehicle at the scene of the crime and fled the scene. But inside his vehicle, they actually found No Kings protest paraphernalia, flyers, if you will. So essentially what they're telling people to do in the Minnesota area is to not attend any No Kings protests. Now, of course, if you're going to go to a protest out there, that's your prerogative. But it's important for you to remain vigilant and remain smart. This does have hallmarks that remind me very much of Luigi Mangione. Of course, individuals are already coming out and saying this is a politically motivated attack, and it very well may be, but not for the reasons people might think initially. So do your own due diligence, find the facts. This is the breaking information. I might have an update for you later, but as of right now, these are the facts as they stand, and I'm curious what your thoughts might be.
So now let's start today's today's lesson. But we seeing right now, this could be another psyop. You know what I'm saying? You know, they always manufacturing things. And also it said at the end that it was because maybe, you know, it's a possibility, has not been confirmed, that could have been about this migrant bill, you know, for health care or something of that matter. But we already seen how these things are going. Also we seeing that they had those flyers in his car where it said, you know, no king protest. So we already know how these things are going. You know, we're not ignorant of Satan's device. That's all I'm gonna say on it. But we seeing how these things are constantly going. You know, this will order out of chaos, cause cause this what happened just happened. You know, and bring forth the solution, which in fact is the total control. We put it like that. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to say too much. You know what I'm saying? Because right now we're getting very close. You know, them, you know, taking this all down. So, but one thing about it, you know, you got to get it while it's hot. So let's start here first. We're going to go straight to the point. It says here, 2 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 16, it said, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their acts shall stand in their power." So one thing about it is that we see it here, sedition also goes into protesting, rioting, you know, uproars, uprising, you know, it's civil unrest, civil war, a lot of things, insurrection. And also right here, shall not regard their kings nor princes, you know, those Minnesota lawmakers, those state officials, you know, your local official, your government official, you know, pretty much, you know, military, you know what I'm saying, the police, and so forth and so forth, the FBI, you know, CIA, whatever it may be, you know, they're not going to regard each other, you know, because right now, you know, we're in a time whereby the nation is very divided. You know, no one is not trusting anyone anymore. And we're seeing right now that this place is slowly circling the drain. And right now, you know, their action should stand in their power. That's exactly what's happening, you know, so left and right. So we're going to constantly see these things on the uprise. Sedition, when you look it up, goes into protesting, rioting, looting, all sorts of disarray, all sorts of mayhem. That's exactly what they want. So this man right here, whether he was sent, you know, or was this MK Ultra, when you get around to look up this mind control deal, you know, but you know, we don't want to say too much on it, but we're seeing how this is going. We're not ignorant of Satan's device. So one thing behind another, and one thing about it is only just beginning. So we see it right now, you know, a lot of they're now trying to say that that these lawmakers are in some type of danger. You know, they need security and all different type of things like that. So we kind of see how this is going. So every day, you know what I'm saying, we know that the devil is getting ready to come down with great wrath. So now let's go to our last and final scripture. Just not meant to be a long lesson tonight. Let's go into Matthew chapter 25. We close out here because this is exactly where we at. The nation is divided. You're very divided. Let's go back out. Let's go here to, oh man, let's see where I want to go. It's Matthew 12. Matthew 12 and 25, I'm not mistaken. Matthew 12 and verse 25. And it reads, "And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand, Salakia." So that's where we at right now. We're seeing all this, you know, division, you know what I'm saying? Nation rise against nation. We're seeing these one country against this country, one city against this city. You know, we're seeing these lawmakers going back and forth with the civilians. You man, it's a lot of things left and right, back and forth. So let's read that again. Matthew chapter 12 and verse 25. "And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand." So that's where we at right now. This place is getting ready to crumble like a cookie. Verse 26 said, "And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. So how shall then his kingdom stand?" And one thing about it, we already know right now that, you know, we seeing right now the Lord is setting the Egyptian against the Egyptian. You know, and one thing about it, you know, it's America against American. So right now, you know, we seeing that, you know, they're not trusting the president. They're not trusting the government official. They're not trusting each other. So we right here at this lawless time, you know, which in fact is going to be Jacob's trouble. So we seeing right now, if Satan casts out Satan, how can his kingdom stand? And one thing about it, we seeing the downfall of America, Babylon the Great. We're seeing it happening right with our eyes. So they're not going to regard anyone. So we coming upon this lawless time, Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation. We go through these things left and right. So this is where we at. So that's just a little something I see through the spirit. These things right here going to constantly increase. These things going to constantly pick up. Left and right, and more increased violence. We're seeing that the love of men is waxing colder and colder. People is being psycho. Right now, cold blooded, and also we know that the Lord is sending that spirit of vengeance. They're working overtime. The Lord sending these evil angels out, and also once again, the Lord is bringing down that judgment each and every day. So let's we ended there. It says the title of the day lesson once again is "They shall not regard their kings nor princes." So I like to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem, Rikah Kwadash. I like to say, Shalom, Shalom.